Okay, I want to review where were we? We had Bethlehem, Jesus of Bethlehem at the Golgotha. The soldiers are there and they divvy up his clothes and then they throw lots over his vesture. Um, and when they throw lots over his vesture, um, Jesus says, "This is your son, this is your mother." And so Mary, the mother of Jesus, goes with the disciple whom Jesus loved. Now, Bethlehem means house of meat. Um, so Jesus of Bethlehem would be Jesus of the house of meat. Um, and in Isaiah 8, shortly after Emmanuel is introduced, there is a Maher-Shalal-Hash-Baz, and that means he who runs to the spoils, which isn't a perfect fit for House of Meat, but it's vaguely similar. And the mother of Maher-Shalal-Hash-Baz is a prophetess. So these things have something to do with each other. The soldiers throw lots for the vesture of Jesus of Bethlehem, who is the house of meat, who's Maher-Shalal-Hash-Baz, which means they're basically deciding uh, who describes Jesus, who describes his vesture. And at that time, the disciple whom Jesus loved is put into the hands of Mary the mother, who is the prophetess. Okay, then from there, uh, Maher-Shalal-Hash-Baz rushes to the spoils. He drinks the wine vinegar and says it is finished. This is different from the son of the father, who was not interested in drinking the wine vinegar. Certainly didn't ask for it. Um, anyway, he slumps over. Um, then pretty much everybody leaves. Then soldiers leave. Only one witness comes by. Um, they break his legs, or his people come by and maybe break the legs of the guys next to him, but they leave him alone. And then only one witness comes by, so nobody is there, and pierces him with his spear. Okay. Then the witness goes away, and Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea arrive with some myrrh, aloe, and strips of linen. They put in our house of meat in there. There we go. And, oh look, right here is a garden tomb. Okay, we're going to take him over the garden tomb. And that's where we are at the end of John 19, the place where Jesus was crucified. There was a garden, and in the garden a new tomb, in which no one had ever been laid. Because it was the Jewish day of preparation, and since the tomb was nearby, they laid Jesus there. Okay, early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance. So here is Mary Magdalene coming up to the tomb, the garden tomb, and seeing that the stone, okay, that's terrible drawing, but there's the stone that's been removed from the entrance. So she came running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved, and said, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him." So she runs down here and tells Simon Peter, And another disciple, wait a second, did she go in? Okay, she saw that the stone had been removed. Doesn't say she went in. That's interesting. So John's giving you a little hint here. She didn't go in. It was still dark. She didn't go in. She didn't have proof. She hadn't seen with her own eyes and ears that they had taken the Lord out of the tomb. She already knew that he wasn't there. So Peter and the other disciple started for the tomb. Both were running, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He bent over and looked in at the strips of linen lying there, but did not go in. So we got a race between these two. The other disciple gets there, sees the strips of linen on the inside, and did not go in. Then Simon Peter came along behind him and went straight into the tomb. He saw the strips lying there, strips of linen lying there, as well as the cloth that had been wrapped around Jesus' head. The cloth was still lying in its place, separate from the linen. So is that myrrh and aloe still there? I'm not sure, but the cloth, there's some cloth that wasn't mentioned there before, and strips of linen. Finally, the other disciple, who had reached the tomb first, also went inside. He saw and believed. So this is interesting. The other disciple enters, sees the strips of linen lying there, and the cloth, and he believed. Now, you can't believe something if it's not specified what you believe. So, did he believe that Jesus had gotten up and walked out of there? Or did he believe that someone had taken the body and was getting prepared to eat it? Or did he believe just that someone had stolen the body? John frequently uses this sort of language, he saw and believed, and recommends that you believe in a name or you believe something like that. But it usually doesn't specify, get any more specific than that. Anyway, he saw and believed. They still did not understand from Scripture that Jesus had to rise from the dead. And that's so whatever he did believe here would have been, or if this is true, if he did not understand that Jesus had to rise from the dead, and he was believing something other than that Jesus had risen from the dead, then that's weird. All right, 10. Then the disciples went back to where they were staying. So they're like, bye, Mary. Okay. Now Mary stood outside the tomb crying, and as she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb. She saw two angels in white seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and one at the foot. So here I have put down a foot angel and a head angel, and Mary Magdalene is outside looking in and crying. They asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "They have taken my Lord away," she said, "and I don't know where they have put him." At this she turned and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize it was Jesus. So at this point, I think Jesus has arrived, and actually I'm not sure, it might be maybe both of them are arrived. Um, Remember, both of them were christened, but it was Bethlehem's head was christened, Barabbas's feet were christened. So I don't know if it's just one person or both. But I think some switcheroo was done One of them was crucified from noon to 3, and the other one was just crucified for seemingly a few minutes, but I'm not 100% sure which one's which. So right now I'm just going to leave Bethlehem right there because that's how I have described it up to this point. He'd be the one that survived early in this video. But no, Mary was right there. She was right there in front of him, so she'd recognize him. Okay, so we got to put the other guy up here. We got to put up Barabbas. Somehow, Barabbas was tough enough to survive 3 hours of crucifixion in front of a whole lot of people. So Barabbas asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "They have taken my Lord away," she said, "and I don't know where they put him." At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize that it was Jesus. He asked her, "Woman, why are you crying? What is it you are looking for?" Thinking he was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." Jesus said to her, "Mary." And she turned toward him and cried out in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. So she does recognize Barabbas, and she says, "Oh, hi." And he says, "Do not hold on to me, because I have not yet ascended to the Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." So there's a couple of reasons Barabbas is saying, "Do not hold on to me." One is that he after 3 hours of being crucified, he doesn't feel all that well. Another reason is that he doesn't plan to give any more son of the father riddles. It's basically saying, from now on, I'm not going to speak to you in riddles. I am going to speak plainly about the Father. Uh, my God and your God is the same. My Father and your Father are. I won't make up riddles about my Father, essentially. So Mary Magdalene went to the disciples with the news, "I have seen the Lord," and she told them that he had said these things to her. Because at this point, Mary Magdalene was concerned about Jesus of Bethlehem, and she may have thought he was dead, and instead she's greeted by Jesus Barabbas, and she didn't recognize him, but she did value and respect him and uh, love him to the extent that she called him the Lord, even if he did incite rebellion by telling the Israelites not to pay taxes to Caesar. Okay, so anyway, where Mary Magdalene sees an angel at the foot and an angel at the head, these sort of fulfill the prophecy of John 1:1. We have angels ascending and descending on the Son of Man. And in general, Barabbas has his feet. Mary generally christens the feet of Barabbas. And in general, she christens the head of Jesus of Bethlehem. They are uh, kind of like, it's easy to ascend towards heaven uh, using the teachings of Jesus Bethlehem, um, which are given in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and it's easy to descend using the teachings of Barabbas, or the example of Barabbas, which is given in John's Gospel. So when, and I think, again, this I think is Barabbas, I'm thinking when he says, I have not yet ascended to the Father, he's saying, I'm not dead yet. Go to my brothers and say, I am ascending to my Father and to your Father, to my God and to your God. Uh, this would be the last quote of Barabbas, to say, despite the bad example that he's shown, he is still ascending to not just not to our not just to his Father, but also to our God, the God of the Israelites. He's also saying, do not hold on to me, which is kind of like, do not hold on to my teaching, um, for I have not yet ascended to the Father, which means uh, until someone understands the teaching of Barabbas, uh, he is ascending. He is still ascending to his Father. Anyway, question is, did Mary Magdalene see a ghost, or did she actually see Barabbas walking around? Either way, she did not recognize him. And once she did recognize him, it's not really that clear whether she's talking to Barabbas or Bethlehem. But the sort of language he's using is more consistent with the language he's used throughout John's Gospel, where he talks about my Father, the Father, and through the use of appositions like these, makes it sound like he's saying, my Father is your God. However, in this one, he's actually being kind enough to say, my Father and your Father is also my God and your God. Okay, so here's what I think it means. We've got the ghost of Barabbas standing there talking to Mary Magdalene. And the ghost of Barabbas says to Mary, I am ascending to heaven, but I am not there yet. Do not hold on to me. And what he means by holding on to him is he's going to teach a little bit more. And he's going to teach a couple of things. And they're going to be kind of on the form of, here he is in the inner rooms. A couple of things coming up in the following chapter, with the doors locked for fear of the Jewish leaders. Jesus is going to talk to him. And then a week later, his disciples were in the house again, and the doors were locked. And in chapter 21, it says, early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore. So this would be Jesus out in the wilderness. In each of those cases, Jesus teaches something that you really shouldn't hold on to, and I will discuss those in videos that are coming up.